Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 57 of Blake&Vish Sports. I'm Blake, joined with Vish. We have on Mondays now, usually there's Mondays with Vish, aka Vish and Grant Cohn go on, talk some Niners, talk quarterback situation, all that. But unfortunately, they couldn't do that, so we had to get Vish on, or we had to do our show today to have Vish on a Monday show. So, Vish, how are you doing? How was your watching experience this past week? It was week 5 of the NFL, and things are starting to amp up a little bit, especially in Santa Clara.
Yeah, I mean, Blake's got jokes because our schedule is actually Monday, Friday. We just sometimes struggle to get that Monday show in, and sometimes even the Friday show in. But yeah, Grant was a little bit busy. I also got an exam tomorrow, so we thought we would just get a quick stream in. Obviously, a lot has happened. My viewing experience on Sunday was definitely interesting. Never good when the Niners lose, obviously, but it was cool to see Trey Lance play. I thought he did a lot of good things, some bad. It was fun to go back and see the film this morning. I thought it was actually maybe better than what I expected originally on the broadcast. I have quite a few strong opinions on the 49ers as a team on the whole. I think they have some weaknesses. We'll talk about all those things. But we also have a lot of other things in the NFL to talk about. Like, isn't it crazy the Chiefs are 2-3?
Well, I mean, didn't everybody kind of, expect the Raiders and Broncos to have better records than them and them to have the same record as the Steelers at this point in the season?
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention, we also expected the Steelers' offense to finally look competent against the Broncos' defense of all defenses against Vic Fangio.
Yeah, something's wrong with our defense. It's kind of weird how much better
They
we
let,
thought they would be. But
yeah,
yeah, we can just get into it. With the first game, and speaking of poor defenses, this defense has, yeah, they've been bad so far, allowing on average 30 points a game. There's a tweet I saw earlier saying this defense is allowing 7.1 yards per play. The greatest show on turf, the 2000 Rams offense, was averaging 7 yards on play. So basically, this Chiefs offense is playing against the 2000 Rams offense every game, is basically what it comes down to. So their defense has been bad. Mahomes has had a lot of interceptions and turnovers this year, as much as last year already, and it's only week 5. Vish, they're 2-3 now. What's the panic meter for the Kansas City Chiefs? How worried are you about them?
So, I mean, I think when you have Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, and Andy Reid calling the plays, you're not exactly that worried. I think the reason I'm very worried about the Kansas City Chiefs is actually the injuries to go with the fact that I don't think they're a good football team at this point. We voiced our concern about the Chiefs before the season, not that we expected them to be 2-3 at this point, but we did think that this was the year they might take a little bit of a step back in the AFC, given that outside of Hill and Kelsey, there's no receiving options on this offense. We thought the defense, especially up front in the trenches, was a little bit worse. We thought, overall, just the Kansas City Chiefs were a worse roster, and we thought the attrition of 4 straight years of deep playoff success would catch up to them. But to me, at this point, they're not a very good football team. They're really not. I think they have a really great quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. They have obviously two fantastic weapons, but Kelsey seems banged up, and Hill is apparently working through some knee injury, which is not good. Uh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not gotten better in the way that I thought he would year one to year two. He's had a couple of good games here and there, but Kansas City has not been consistent running the football. They've also not been consistent in their commitment to run the football. The offensive line that they put together, to me, actually has played pretty well this season. I think it's been an upper half of the league offensive line. I mean, Trey Smith as a rookie is looking good.
Mhm.
Uh, Orlando Brown has been pretty good, which is what they traded him to be, and all of that. So that's really their offense overall. We can nitpick, and there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues outside of Mahomes, outside of Tyreek Hill, outside of Travis Kelsey, but it's not the issue. This defense is terrible. We've talked about Seattle's defense, how it's terrible. This defense is right in the conversation with Seattle's defense. It's awful. Um, I feel like every week we see Daniel Sorensen busting some coverage and letting somebody get wide open deep for a touchdown. The only real two guys that have stood out to me in this defense are Chris Jones and Tyron Matthew. And yesterday we saw Chris Jones doesn't play and the issues that this defense has, I don't think they have a lot of good players on it at all. I mean, Frank Clark is no longer the Frank Clark that they signed 2 years ago, and he's really struggled this season, in my opinion, in terms of just being an overall dominant presence. The way they pay him, of course, Frank Clark might turn that around in the playoffs, but I think there's a lot of issues. I think Steve Spagnuolo, who's usually very creative, very out of the box, he's still trying those things. It's just they don't have the personnel to do it. I think Kansas City should be worried from the standpoint of I still think they're capable of making the playoffs, but I would be shocked. I think this team is a one playoff game and out. I think they would lose in the first round because I think right now Cleveland's a better football team than them. I think Buffalo's a better football team than them. I think Chargers are a better football team than them. And I also would have to I don't know about Baltimore. Baltimore, though they've been winning in somewhat of an unsustainable way, which is mostly attributed to Lamar Jackson's specialness. But those three teams, to me, for sure, are better football teams at this point than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're doing like a panic meter here, and I'm talking about the Chiefs, I'm putting them at probably a 7 or 8. You mentioned the offensive trio of Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. That's still probably the best in the league. I don't think there's any taking that away. The O-line got retooled, which we talked about, and that helped a lot, right? You know, they shored up the left side in the center position. The right side has some younger guys, but they've been coming in on their own, especially Smith. They took him in the 6th round, and he's been really good. So no complaints there, but they're still lacking that running game. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not what we thought he would be. He just hasn't been. And they've not really drafted particularly great the last few years either. They've had a decent amount of misses, in all honesty. So that's not helping them. And then you mentioned their defense. We brought up how the Seahawks only have a few good players. Well, the Chiefs are the exact same way. They really only have Chris Jones. Frank Clark, comes out sometimes and he'll have a good game, but it's pretty inconsistent on that end. And then Tyrann Mathieu, who's basically trying to just frantically make a play, a positive play for them, because if he doesn't, really no one else is going to besides him and Chris Jones. And Chris Jones was out, as you mentioned. Their corners, I don't think they're horrible. Fenton and Snead played all right. Sorensen has been struggling mightily. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know. He's out there a lot, and his coverage has been just not good by any stretch of the imagination. So it's tough, and I don't think this is a quick fix either. They've traded a lot of firsts over the years to get these high-end guys, and that's great and all, but at some point you need youth, and you need guys that are cheap to come in, because when you have Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Orlando Brown all making just a lot of money, some of the highest paid guys at their position, you can't just keep spending for these, guys in their prime right now. It's just not feasible to do that. So they're going to have to either draft really well, and maybe this past draft they got some guys. We mentioned Smith. Bolton has been all right at middle linebacker. But yeah, I'm worried at this moment for them, and I don't think they can win with this defense deep into the playoffs. I think they could maybe get a game or two. Two is being, a little generous, but it kind of reminds me, and I know we've brought this up in the past because we did this right after they lost the Super Bowl and how they might regress, but this cycle sort of happens. It happened with the Packers and it happened with the Saints. Your defense just struggles a lot when you're paying all these offensive guys, and it's really hard to keep a defense intact together for an extended period of time. You see that pretty much every team, every elite defense usually just starts slowly crumbling. It's hard to pay 11 guys, whereas offense, it's usually centered around the quarterback, and if you pay him, things will go a lot smoother. So this defense is reminding me a little bit of the early 2010 Packers and then the mid 2000 Saints, where it was, just high scoring games pretty much. And Mahomes, you're going to have to score at least 30 if you want a chance at winning. But it's just not really a feasible way to play, and there's no quick solution to it either, really.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. There's no solution. Because the other thing is they've drafted poorly the last 3 years. Their
Mhm.
draft picks have not been producing. Sure, they have a guy like Trey Smith, who they draft and he produces, but Willie Gay Jr., they drafted him pretty high. He was their highest pick, I think, in 2020, and he hasn't lived up to it. Nick Bolton, I mean, for a rookie, he's playing okay, but the Chiefs linebackers across the board have
Yeah.
struggled. They've struggled in coverage. They lack, speed, and there's a lot of things. I think another thing is that with the Chiefs defense is they used to be able to win the line of scrimmage with their defensive line. It wasn't, just obviously Chris Jones is a dominant player. He's one of the best defensive players in football, but they used to have a lot more size across their defensive line, and they would have a deep defensive line filled with players who could also win and would be powerful and be difficult to move in the run game. We're not seeing that. When their run game, when you run the football against the Kansas City Chiefs, it's automatic, really, to gain yardage. Their run defense is really, really poor. Not to mention, yeah, their corners are playing okay, but it's real. They're put in tough spots on islands against elite wide receivers in the AFC and having to guard them against elite quarterbacks. There's a lot of issues with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then the final issue, and we both haven't touched on it, is they're starting to turn the football over. And to me, it's just a matter of a mixture of just luck that they've had in years past where Mahomes has a ball that maybe should be picked but it bounces
Mhm.
away or something like that, and the fact that their defense is so bad that Mahomes is pressing a little bit extra, and maybe he's coming off the injury. Maybe he's not as healthy. I've heard Chris Sims and a couple other people say that they've heard that he's not 100%. So that's definitely plausible, given that he had surgery this offseason. And so when you add all of that together, it's a recipe for disaster because you can't turn the football over if you have a terrible defense, and that's what the Chiefs are doing right now, and that's why they're losing games because their offense is still capable of scoring 40 against anybody. But if you give the other team 2 extra possessions and they're scoring every possession against your defense, before you know it, you're going to lose 38-20. And I think we're seeing that. Mahomes is obviously, I think he's already thrown 6 picks
Yep.
this season. I think in years past, he's been capable of maybe throwing more interceptions than he's thrown. Not saying that he's a high interception guy by any means, but I do think he is a little more not as risk averse as the interception numbers seem to indicate. So I do think that, he might get to like 9, 10, 12 interceptions maybe this year, which is what
Mhm.
he threw in 2018. It's not, I don't think it's a terrible number for him. But yeah, overall, it's just a recipe for disaster. I think their best solution, especially with so many defenses adopting this two deep safety look with both safeties maybe 15 yards off the ball so they can start picking off Tyreek Hill when he comes across the field and Travis Kelsey, they got to find a way to run the football and they got to be committed to run the football. It can't be, oh, we run the football, 17 times with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He has 100 yards. And then the next game we have 7. It didn't work the first 7 times, so we're not going to run the ball. They have to stay committed and make that their identity. And I thought they would a little bit more with the offensive line than they got because Orlando Brown's a mauler in the run game. Joe Tooney, who has been a little bit banged up, but he's also a mauler in the run game. He's actually better in the run game, in my opinion, than the pass game. Trey
Mhm.
Smith is a mauler too. So you look at their offensive line; they do have the personnel to run the football. It's just not Andy Reid's mo. It's not what you do when you have Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey. But to me, that's the only solution for this team because they have to save possessions, they have to play safer, and they have to protect that terrible defense.
Yeah, that and just that. I don't know if McCole Hardman's the answer at their number two. They went and tried to get Juju Smith-Schuster this offseason. I thought that would have been an awesome pickup. Looking at how their offense is now, having him for the short game would be really, really great. And then McCole is your number three. You could stomach that a little more, and I think that would have been a great pickup for them. But they weren't able to get him. Maybe this offseason he was only on a 1 year deal. So yeah, so that's the Chiefs. Panic meter rising in Kansas City, mainly due to their defense. I'd say 90% due to their defense at this point. Um, but the other team, or the team they played on Sunday night, was the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. They finally got the win against the Chiefs. They lost against them in the AFC Championship last year. He looked phenomenal. Dawson Knox, he looked great. All the receiving options. The defense for the Bills has been a lot better this year too. Star Lutulele, their whole D line is just they have a lot of guys they've been rotating in, secondary good, healthy, getting better. But Vish, do you think this Buffalo Bills team right now is the best in the AFC?
Yeah, I do think it's the best team in the AFC. I think the biggest difference between the Bills last year and the Bills this year is that they are able to do two things better. They run the football to me better as a team. Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, they found something, especially because Josh Allen didn't start the year as sharp as he was last year. And of course, Josh Allen himself is a special runner. He's a top 5 running quarterback in the league. And they're much better up front defensively than they were last year. Obviously, they got one of the best safety tandems in football. Poyer, Micah Hyde, they're as good as it gets. They're really sound. They're both very versatile. They both can do a lot of different things. They have a good linebacker tandem of Milano and Tremaine Edmonds. They're very good, but their defensive line is very good. Jerry Hughes is very good. Greg Rousseau has been uh, maybe the defensive rookie of the year, honestly, so far this season. I know we haven't mentioned him, but he's played really well. Ed Oliver's having a better season this year than he had last year when he struggled maybe a little bit. They also drafted Carlos Basham. So they have a lot of young talent on their defensive and offensive line, and it's paying off. Um, I think they are the best team in the AFC. I think they're maybe the most well-rounded team in the NFL because right now, by the looks of it, they have a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense, which is pretty tough to have in the NFL. Sean McDermott's obviously a really good coach. And then they have a quarterback who's really special, like really special. Like I tweeted about it yesterday. It wasn't even that Josh Allen's numbers looked so good yesterday because they played in obviously the second half was played in basically just pouring rain where it's
Mhm.
not much the quarterback can do. But that was the first time I felt like there was a quarterback that was more in control of the game and just outplaying Mahomes on the other side. It felt like every time a play needed to be made, Josh Allen was going to make it with his legs and his arm. And I felt like he was making more physically gifted plays, whether it was running outside of the pocket and throwing sidearm laser to Gabe Davis on third down, or the throws to Dawson Knox down the field, and just his arm talent and his just the throw to Emmanuel Sanders, maybe the best throw of the season so far this year, and we've seen quite a few good ones. That was just a absolute rope dropped into the bucket. He is so gifted and he's showing it off. I thought he outplayed Mahomes. First time I've ever thought a quarterback has outplayed Mahomes in the same game, which is kind of crazy to say, but he's obviously a special quarterback, in my opinion, one of the 3 best in football. And I think the Bills definitely are the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, so I think on so the current rankings right now, this is week 5, right? Bills
Hmm.
are 4-1, Chargers are 4-1, Ravens are 3-1. This is before Monday night, and then some of the other teams that have just been really solid so far: Bengals, Browns, both 3-2, Broncos and Raiders. But I mean, I feel like really the teams that are most comparable to them are the Chargers, the Chiefs. Although they just beat the Chiefs, I'm not going to count them out yet. Um, and I think you got to put the Browns up there too. But they do potentially, I'd say them and the Browns. We mentioned the Browns last year or this offseason as one of the most well-rounded teams. The Bills are right up there with them. But I think what the Bills have that they don't is they have Allen. I think Allen is just that much better than Mayfield. Now Mayfield's been really good, definitely top 15 QB, and all that. But I still think having Allen and just you just trust him more than you can trust any other quarterback in the NFL. I think he's probably up there. He's solidified in the top 5. I know people have been putting them there in the offseason and others have been a little weary, but I don't know what he needs to do. The numbers aren't always there. I mean, but their offense is scoring over 35 a game. I think some of those touchdowns have been getting taken by like the likes of Moss and Singletary and all that. But um, I'd say they're number 1 or 2 right now, and I don't really know what can stop them at this point. We know they lost to the Steelers week 1. Offense was rough, but having this good of a receiving core, their running game's picking up, and their defense, I think, has been the most under talked about thing in the league. They just played amazing against the Chiefs, forced 3 turnovers, maybe even 4, I think. I think it was 4, but that's great. And people were saying they had a cupcake schedule and all that, but I mean, if you're forcing 4 turnovers, scoring on the defensive side, allowing only 20 points to the Chiefs, at some point you got to give the tip your hat to them. So I'm putting the Bills at number 1 or 2 right now. Undoubtedly top 3 in the AFC with the Browns and Chargers. I think are up there as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and I just to further elaborate on that defense, it's really stacked. Like they don't have a weakness, basically. Maybe their weakness was run defense last year. And, I talked about how I thought it would be better because Star Lotulelei was coming back this year. He didn't even play yesterday, I don't think.
He was
I
in
thought
for a
he
little
was
bit.
hurt. Didn't he get hurt?
He might have been hurt, but I know he was definitely out there for some bit.
Okay, well, but he's helped, but the real revelation has been how good Greg Rousseau has been and some of
Yeah.
these other guys. It's really a deep and stacked defensive line. Ed Oliver, who I mentioned earlier, he's played better. And then, of course, Jerry Hughes is still really good. And their defense is just really good. I don't know why you would say it's just bad teams because I don't think good teams are going to have their way with this defense because there's just too many really good players on their defense. And those two safeties are playing as good as any safety tandem in the NFL. They're really, really good. I always talk about, obviously, I'm a Niners fan, so I always talk about Tartan Ward. To me, they're the AFC equivalent of Tartan Ward.
Mhm.
Those two safeties are really good at everything. They're really, really good players, both of them. They don't get talked about enough in the NFL. They both don't get talked about enough when people are ranking safeties, but both are really good. Poyer, especially to me, is very, very good. Hyde obviously had the pick six that Tyreek Hill basically muffed into his hands. But yeah, I don't see why their defense would regress against better offenses because obviously better offenses are going to score on any defense, but this defense is really, really talented. That's why even though they played bad offenses, they didn't just make bad offenses struggle. They whipped their butt up and down the field and embarrassed them.
Definitely. So I think we can both agree Bills are looking like top team in the AFC, top two at minimum. And then maybe in the NFL they might be the best. I know the Cardinals have a better record as of now, but I mean it's tough to take anything away from either of them. So yep, those are the Buffalo Bills. And before we get to the other topics, we got to do it. We got to get to the 49ers. It wouldn't be Mondays with Vish if we weren't talking about the 49ers quarterback situation. That is just a rule at this point. But Vish, you're going to go first on this one because this is your team. This is your guy. Trey Lance had his first start against the Cardinals. It was a close loss. The offense scored, I want to say it was 17-10. Offense moved the ball pretty well, though. Vish, what were your initial thoughts or initial reactions to Trey Lance's first start?
Yeah, so we're gonna obviously talk about the first start and the injury. Both are gonna be back to back. Those are our next two topics. We just wanted to keep it in the middle so that more people had the opportunity because we know a lot of you are coming in just to talk about this. But my initial thoughts, honestly, was that there's a lot of positive that Trey Lance did in his first start. I don't know why, but I felt like a lot of people were ready to write it off. I mean, this is a guy making his first start on the road against a team that's 4-0 and they're just a better football team than the 49ers, top to bottom. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this game before I talk about Lance was the 49ers, I think we overrated them as a football team, honestly. I look at this roster and I compare them, let's say, to their other three teams in their division. They don't win the line of scrimmage the way they did in 2019. This offensive line got beaten up. The Cardinals out physicaled them on especially the Niners offensive line. They just pushed them around. JJ Watt was everywhere. Chandler Jones had himself a game. This offensive line between Mack, Brunskill, and McGlinchey had his struggles yesterday. They haven't been very strong all year. I mean, Kenny Clark, I thought maybe that was a one off. Kenny Clark had a great game, but no. Javon Hargrave played a phenomenal game against them. Javon Hargrave's had a great year. Fine. Kenny Clark absolutely whipped their butts. Kenny Clark's an excellent player. Fine. You go to the next game. Seattle doesn't have a good defensive line, but Seattle had success at the line of scrimmage. The Niners didn't blow them off the ball. So that was another game. And then finally you come here and Arizona also whips them up and down. It's just I don't think, especially in terms of offense, their personnel is as good as we originally thought. Like I think they have the fourth best group of receivers in the NFC West. I think they have the third best offensive line, especially if Rodney Hudson is healthy. Arizona has a better offensive line, and I think they have the worst running back set in the NFL. So I just wanted to get that out there. I think that's context that's needed in Trey Lance's first start, and frankly, in Jimmy Garoppolo's last four games, because as we're going into this season, we're finding out it's just obvious to me that the Niners just aren't as talented as I originally thought on the offensive side of the ball. So now getting into how he played, I thought he played pretty well. I thought the first thing that's evident, and we've talked about this, I feel like every time we talk about Trey Lance, is that athleticism and that arm strength is immediately evident. And he came into the game and he seems to have this thing where he always starts up a little overly amped. The interception to Travis Benjamin, he had Benjamin wide open. He did a good job climbing the pocket. When you go back and see the all 22, it's really the throw is there to be made. I tweeted originally I thought he should have run, but it's a throw that's there to be made, and he just airmails it. It's a terrible throw. And Buda Baker, he throws it right to him and he picks it off. He says, "Thank you very much." But after that, I thought he settled in, and I felt like as the game went on, the better he got, which seems to be a theme with Trey Lance.
Mhm.
Originally, he was a little bit frantic in the pocket. He was inconsistent with his accuracy. And then he started settling in. And as the game went on, you saw like the bullet to Ayuk near the sideline. I thought that was a phenomenal throw in
Mhm.
tight coverage, low and away, amazing ball placement. He had a couple balls to Debo where he was able to get out of the pocket. I thought his athleticism and pocket presence, while it's his presence in the pocket originally, I felt at times started off shaky. I thought his escapability was a big factor in why the 49ers were able to compete in this football game, other than obviously their defense doing an unbelievable job on Kyler Murray. I thought his escapability really gave them opportunities in that game. Now, it is a double edged sword because I would say a couple of those holding penalties and a couple of the sacks taken could have been attributed to Trey Lance
Mhm.
just because you don't expect the guy to be 10 yards deep in his drop and just standing there. With times he could step up and the tackles are looking to just push the edge rushers around, and there's Trey Lance. They got a hold. And, at times, McGlinchey has got the guy blocked and Lance runs into McGlinchey and kind of ran himself into the sack. That did happen a couple of times. So it was a little bit both good and bad. But honestly, overall, I really thought he played well. We talked about it. It might have been the best first start of all the rookie quarterbacks. I'd say probably Mac Jones. I was really impressed. I still think Mac Jones' first game is the best game he played. But when you go back and watch it and you see all the things he did, I think there's just a lot of positive to be taken away, really, because he played better in the pocket from the pocket than what I expected, honestly, especially later in that game. His accuracy got better and better as the game went, and he started hitting the throws that he's been inconsistent with later in the game. Like he threw a couple short passes to Juszczyk. He had one to Sanu on third and fourth down that was against the zero blitz, and he knew he was going to get hit, and he put it on Sanu. So overall, I thought it was a good performance. I did, and as a Niners fan, I am excited for how the outlook is moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I thought it was probably the best rookie performance considering all the factors that just go into it. And I think the main one that we hasn't been brought up yet is just the whole game plan in general. They barely ran the ball with the running backs. Trey Lance had over 10 carries. Now, not all these were designed, but there was a lot designed. But they were dropping back a ton. They didn't do play action very frequently. He was really playing as a pocket passer for the majority of this game, which is kind of the one thing that coming into the season we said he's going to need to improve on. That's not really his game. He's better in the play action and then just kind of running as well. So those two things are um, just kind of surprising that that's how they used him. And then the second observation I had was, yeah, you mentioned his pocket presence. We talked about that in last week or against the Seahawks and how we thought he just kind of tucked it and ran a little too much. I thought he did amazing against this pass rush, which we brought up and saying they have all these really good guys, Chandler Jones, JJ Watt. They all played great and they were getting around there beating the 49ers O-line consistently. But he only got sacked twice. Now there was some holding calls that yeah, you could maybe attribute those to him, but that's to be expected. He's so young, doesn't have much experience. You can expect that because you're taking that, you're saying, okay, here's some of the issues with some of the positives. You mentioned the throw to Ayuk. What about the one to Debo on the run when he was draped and he still put it on him where only he could catch it? The pass to Sanu. There's so many just good throws that you say, wow, there's not many guys in the NFL that can do that. And he's barely played quarterback at a high level thus far. So that is just um, really convincing, I guess, for all 49ers fans. And probably just divides the whole Jimmy and Trey stands up even more, but that's fine, right? But yeah, that's pretty much all I had in general. I thought Kyle did not call the best of games for him, considering all the factors you mentioned and the fact that it is against a team like the Cardinals.
So in regards to that, because I did want to actually touch on that, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it for sure, because I actually didn't have a problem with the play calling specifically. I just thought the plan was a little bit odd. I thought the one of the reasons I thought they drafted Trey Lance was because he was comfortable in an under center play action offense. We saw him do that at NDSU. He had the advantage of being able to do that while, Justin Fields played in a pure, like, very college offense. And for whatever reason, they did not show off any aspect of their under center run game or their under center play action game, which I thought really could have helped him. I thought, moving him outside of the pocket, especially against a very aggressive defense, and Arizona's a very aggressive defense, could have allowed him to, get him outside of the pocket, created more easy completions. We've seen it for Jimmy Garoppolo, play action, Kittle slips, you run outside zone twice, then the third time Kittle slips out the backside boot and you just dump it off to Kittle. And not that Kittle played yesterday, but we've seen play calls like that where
Mhm.
Shanahan gets in a rhythm and a flow with the under center play action game. For whatever reason, like you mentioned, they had him in kind of the gun and the pistol, and they were running a lot of quarterback design. They were playing this game off the quarterback design, which to me was interesting because I did not expect that, because I thought Trey Lance was capable of doing the under center stuff. So I don't know why they didn't do that. To me, that was a little bit of a bizarre decision. And then the other thing that kind of rubbed me a little bit, that made me a little bit upset, I wouldn't say about the play calling, because I actually really liked them going forward on fourth down. I thought all of those were the right decisions. They didn't get it. It was whatever. But I felt like Arizona started to key in on what the Niners were doing offensively at some point. I mean, the fourth down that Kyle Juszczyk, the quarterback sneak, you can see Kyle Juszczyk motions under center. They ran this play. I think they ran this
Against the
play.
Packers.
Yeah,
They
they ran it
against
against
the
the
Packers.
Packers, exactly. And Jordan Hicks immediately triggers into the A gap and takes Alex Mack out. Well, you're running a quarterback sneak and your center's off the ground as soon as he snaps the ball. You're not going to get the 1.5 yards that they need. And that's what happened. And then the other thing with the fourth downs that I didn't particularly prefer, and is that when they were running their zone read kind of stuff with the quarterback, you can see that these safeties were triggering and coming downhill and fitting the run fast, and they were getting licks on Trey Lance. And now part of it is Trey Lance has to protect himself, but I felt like there became a little bit of an over reliance on that aspect of the run game, because I mean, Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson were flying downhill, and they were meeting Trey Lance at about 4 or 5 yards and just sticking him every single time. The Cardinals' defense is fast; they fly around. I thought maybe, the under center pass game, there could have been under center off play action offense. There could have been a little more of that. The under center more conventional run game with Shanahan, but I don't know what the plan was. I don't know what the reason why they didn't do it. Maybe they didn't get the looks they want. Maybe they didn't feel Trey Lance was comfortable there. But that would be maybe my one thing that I was actually really shocked by, because I thought they drafted him because he's comfortable there and they could run that aspect of their offense no matter what.
Yeah, and maybe he just doesn't know the playbook as well as Jimmy, which is understandable. Jimmy's been
Plausible.
there for years, and Trey Lance been there for an offseason, so that could be it. But yeah, I'm with you. And then I think it's just interesting the contrasting Kyle's fourth down sort of methodology. Earlier in the year, it was uber conservative. He kind of got, some hate for that. And then it's go for it 5 times on fourth down. There's some medium there that's probably the right amount to go for it. And we've seen the Chargers do this with Herbert a lot this year, and it's becoming more of a trend. Saw Andy redo it with Chad Henne at quarterback in the divisional game against the Browns, and it is becoming more popular. It definitely is, and I think analytics point towards that as well. But 5 times with your rookie quarterback in a debut, interesting. He must have a lot of faith in him, but yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of it overall. I thought they should. Thought the running back should have touched the ball more, but the offense did move the ball, so you can't really complain about the offensive yardage in general, because they didn't really punt very much. So that was a good part of their whole game plan. But yeah, that was our instant reactions to their first start. Moving on to something more recent, and this is that it came out after the game not long ago. Trey Lance actually has a knee sprain, and he might miss a week or two. They have their bye week this game, or this upcoming week, sorry. So both Jimmy and Trey are injured. Both are gonna miss, or like week to week, you could say. But what do you make of this, and do you think this adds to how good his performance has been?
Um, yeah, so I have no clue when he got hurt. There was no mention of this
Hmm.
after the game. It's a little bit weird that it just comes up. Not doubting that he has an injury, but the fact that they didn't know anything that he had uncomfortability after the game is, a little bit weird. But to me, it's just disappointing because I was really hoping that, they could use the bye week. They have a lot of issues with their offense. There's issues that go way behind beyond Trey Lance. I mean, I touched on the lack of talent the last segment. There's major discipline issues on this offense. This is a veteran offense that's been in the same system for 5 years now, and they have pre-snap penalties every game. They have multiple holding penalties at important times in during drives. I mean, I don't know if that's a coaching issue, if that's an execution issue, but offenses that have veteran offenses with specific Super Bowl aspirations should not be this undisciplined. And this is a very undisciplined offense. So to me, they have issues that kind of stem from there. And I was hoping that they could use the bye week, to maybe go all in with Trey Lance, all in, buy into being fully involved in this offense that's going to include the quarterback run game, get people comfortable with it, come out of the bye week and see if you can salvage your season because sans your division games, the Niners schedule remaining schedule is not that difficult. It's really a schedule where they can I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to win all 12 games, but they could win 7 or 8 of them and put themselves right back into the playoff conversation. So, it's disappointing that he got hurt. I mean, I'm hoping Jimmy Garoppolo comes back now because I mean, I really don't want to see. I mean, if Nate Sudfeld is starting versus the Colts, that game is getting flexed out of Sunday night for sure.
Oh, it
There's
should be.
no doubt about that. But jokes aside, I think it's disappointing that he got hurt. I don't want to assign blame because we don't know when he got hurt. We didn't even know he got hurt until 30 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago. But to me that at some point this I don't know. This team has to figure something out. Like injuries are part of football. It's difficult to control them. People get injured playing football. But I mean, come on. Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt and then your rookie quarterback who I don't think he's gotten injured. I don't think he got injured at once at
No,
North
I
Dakota
don't think
State
so.
and he comes in immediately and he gets banged up. I don't know what the issue was, but yeah.
Yeah, so I he's injured, Jimmy's injured, quarterback injuries in general. I don't know who to blame. I'm not putting any blame on anyone, but I think one thing that was notable in the game is that Trey Lance took a lot of big hits. I don't know if the injury came from one of the big hits, but if you're a Niners fan, the last thing you want to see is in a potentially lost season, your quarterback is just taking a beating. The one on the goal line that was just a huge hit. Other times when he's just escaping the pocket and people are coming downhill hard, you just don't want to put him in a situation like that. Now, yes, it's hard to obviously tell someone who's got a 4.40 and built like a Mack truck to not run when he has an open lane, but sliding or just I don't know, taking checkdowns, you just want him to take as least amount of big hits as you can, I think is the bottom line. And he's been taking a lot. So I think that does not help with his probabilities of getting injured. I don't know. Again, I don't know if he where he got injured, if it was on a run, maybe it was something that, happened before the game even started. Who knows? But I feel like he needs to not take as many big hits, whether that's trying to protect him or telling him to slide or whatever. But he took way too many hits. That's my first thought. And second thought is, if I'm the Niners at this point, I am sitting Lance until he is fully healthy. Again, the
Absolutely.
last thing you want in a season that you will not win, the Niners aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's not happening. The last thing you want is for your guy who you just traded up 2 first-round picks, a third to move up to get him, is for him to have a lingering issue or have it be more than just a couple of weeks that he's out. You want to keep this man as healthy as you can because you know he is the future of your organization. So, for that reason, if it's Sudfeld, if it's Jimmy, I don't care who. Lance should not be going in for the next couple weeks, even after the bye, which is unfortunate because he was very exciting to watch in his first game as a Niner starting. But I really just don't think he should be coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, to me, I'm 100% with you. There's absolutely no reason to play him unless he's fully healthy. I think that's way too much of a risk, but I think if he's healthy, he should still play this season.
Yeah,
Again, I think that there was a lot of positives, and the one thing that we have seen from Trey Lance in every snap he's played is that he gets better snap to snap. And why curtail that growth? Because you think you can win 9 games with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. I just think at some point you just have to go with what you have with Trey Lance. I still think there's so many things he can do that we haven't been able to see consistently. That Cardinals game, Cardinals are a tough team to play at home.
yeah,
The defense is really, really fast, and they're really fast at home. It's a tough team for Trey Lance to even run the football on because we saw. I don't think there's going to be that many games where the Cardinals are going to have all their back seven players be able to run down Trey Lance to the sideline. That's how this game was. We saw Isaiah Simmons have no issue running Elijah Mitchell, who runs 4-3 down sideline to sideline. Zaven Collins has speed. Buda Baker comes down and tackles as well as any safety in the NFL. Jalen Thompson, their other safety, is quietly playing really, really good football. So I think overall, I do think that's part of it. But again, it just goes back to me. This is actually this is a Shanahan issue, but I don't think it's a coaching issue. I think there's a lot of personnel decisions that have come back and bit the 49ers in the butt this season. There's a lot of bizarre personnel decisions that we thought maybe were smart. They haven't been smart. This team is not as good as we originally thought. This offensive line has gotten has not been able to control the line of scrimmage, not only in the pass game, but they haven't been able to control the line of scrimmage in the run game either. Alex Mack, to me, that signing has not been what I thought it would be. He's
mhm,
really struggled so far. Dan Brunskill has really struggled. Mike McGlinchey started off the season playing better, and last game was brutal. I mean, the 3 penalties to go with the fact that he was getting beat was very difficult. And then you go down the list, and I mean, just these personnel decisions like Brandon Ayuk is not contributing the way we expected. Is that a Shanahan issue? Is that an Ayuk issue? We have no clue. The point is, the guy has 8 catches through 5 games. That's not good enough. You go down the list. I mean, George Kittle is hurt. That's unfortunate. Debo Samuel has been incredible. The running back Sermon hasn't given them much. He's been, I guess, in the doghouse. I don't know what he's in, but they've trusted Elijah Mitchell, who is okay to me, but I mean, he's not a true running back one. Certainly doesn't compare to Raheem Mostert. I think there's just a lot of issues with this roster, a lot of bad personnel decisions that are coming back to bite them. Their signings, other than the guys they re-signed, their own players like Tart and DJ Jones, the new guy they brought, Samson Ebukam, he's made zero impact for them this year. So
mhm.
overall, I just think a lot of bad personnel decisions by the 49ers combined with a weird plan where they wanted to be a contending team but develop a quarterback, but then also have a 2 quarterback system where they run the football with one quarterback and throw the football with one quarterback and do all these kinds of things. It's led to that Niners not having a focus and identity. I don't know what this team does very well. In 2019, I knew they were going to win the line, both lines of scrimmages, and they were going to run the football. I don't know what they do on this. I don't know what they do really well besides play good defense, and they're playing good defense in spite of
Yeah,
having weaknesses at corners, which is incredible. But this defense is also not a great defense where it can take the ball away and score points, where this offense has to be better, and this offense isn't very good. Before you go, just one more point. I don't know, but I every time I watch, I feel like Elijah Mitchell leaves a lot of yards on the field. I don't know why. He plays over Trey Sermon. I personally think Sermon's the better back. I think Mitchell runs hard and he's fast and he's explosive, but I also think he just runs himself into hits instead of having a real idea of finding space and being able to process where the hole is coming in and move himself and go through that hole. That's what I've seen personally. I could be
mhm.
totally wrong. I could be seeing it totally wrong, but that's what I keep seeing with Elijah Mitchell. Go ahead, Blake. My bad.
Yeah. I don't really have much more besides. I think Trey Lance needs to sit until he's 100%. Like no, he's questionable on game day. Oh, let's throw him in there. Like just simply wait till he is entirely ready. There is no reason to put him in for any stretch of the imagination in my mind. But yeah, that's kind of all I have. Um, Trey Lance injured for 1 to 2 weeks with a knee sprain. We don't know when it happened. We don't know how it happened, but that is Trey Lance. And going to the other division, so we just talked a little bit about Bills, Chiefs. Then we went to the Niners, of course, because it's Monday. And now we're back to the Chargers. They just played an incredible game. They beat the Browns 47-42. The Browns lost with the same score last year against the Ravens, if you remember. It
Yes.
was an insane game, but yeah, I don't know. The Browns are just unlucky with when that score comes around. But yeah, 47-42. Herbert balled out, 400 yards, 5 total touchdowns. Mike Williams played a great game. Austin Eckler played great. So yeah, do you think that this Chargers team, as it stands right now, do you think they're a Super Bowl caliber team?
Yeah, I do. I think they are a Super Bowl caliber team. It starts they have an elite quarterback. They have probably one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the NFL in Justin Herbert. The guy is incredible. They have a very good offensive line. Their offensive line has been upgraded where last year was one of the worst. This year, Rashawn Slater has been really, really good. Balaga's good when he plays. It's a good offensive line now. It's not a very good one. I maybe uh, exaggerated a tad bit with that, but it's a good offensive line. They have 2 really good receivers. Mike Williams might be the best receiver on the Chargers, and most people think Keenan Allen's a top 10 to 12 receiver in the NFL. So, I mean, if Mike Williams is maybe the best receiver in the Chargers, is he a top 10 receiver in the NFL? Because every game it feels like nobody can cover Mike Williams. And I thought he was used like a deep threat mostly his first few years. They kind of just treat him like you're real big, fast, just run by people and we'll throw it deep. Now we're seeing like the full use of Mike Williams games. He's still beating people down the field with just pure athleticism and pure his physical freakiness, but we're also seeing like him used in ways that Mike Thomas was maybe used as Joe Lombardi. It's kind of a Saints type offense. And we're seeing that he's really a complete receiver and he's going to get the bag this offseason and he's going to deserve it. He's a beast. And their defense, they're struggling in terms of their ability to stop the run. Of course, that has something to do with the way Brandon Staley consistently plays light boxes and plays too high safeties because he's focused on taking away the pass. But they're a good, very good defense against the pass. Obviously, Asante Samuel Jr. He's playing really well. Their first 2 picks of the draft have been producing. Derwin James has come back. He's finally healthy. He's playing really well. Um, Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa is still Joey Bosa, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. I think Kaiser White has been kind of the unsung hero for their defense. Every time I watch their defense, he's just flying around making play after play. I think he's a really, really underrated good player in the NFL. And so I do think they're a Super Bowl caliber team. I think they've proven it. They beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. I picked the Browns to win the Super Bowl this year, and they beat the Browns in a shootout. Granted, Greedy Williams got hurt and Denzel Ward didn't play, but they still beat them. That's very impressive, even though they beat them at home. And then I love that Brandon Staley is married to the analytics, going for it on 4th down, going for 2, just having a good analytics understanding of game situation to me is incredible because I think it gives the Chargers a chance in any game because he's willing to take the necessary risks in order to win the game. And to me, that's really important. So I do think that they are a Super Bowl caliber team for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm putting that. I think in the AFC right now they're in this top 4 range. I think they've kind of slid into where we had the Browns, the Chiefs, and the Browns, Chiefs, and Bills. I think they're in that tier now. I don't know if the Chiefs are still in there because of that defense, but yeah, I think the Chargers are in there. They just recently beat the Chiefs. They've beaten the Browns. Those are 2 teams that we kind of thought would be the best 2 in the AFC. So they've been good, and their one loss was against the Cowboys, who have been amazing this year. And there was some interesting refereeing in that game. So not going to go into detail, but uh, that was interesting. And the only thing I have two things that are kind of stopping me from this. Otherwise, I think you summed it up how good their team is. The fourth downs. I think the NFL is going more towards analytics, but they are just it seems like they're converting at an unreal rate right now. Every fourth down, it seems like they're converting. Now, can that be sustained? Can they continue to do that the whole season? They might be. I mean, Herbert's been insanely accurate. It seems like they have the right play call when they need it on fourth, but it's asking a lot to just convert every fourth down. And then along with that, a reason they're going for a lot of these fourth downs is because their special teams, especially their kicking unit, has struggled a lot. And I feel like this has kind of been the Chargers of the last, I mean, ever since the 2000s, right? Their special teams is always struggling. Their kicker, they had the Money Badger a few years ago. He struggled. Now they have Vizcano, and he misses a lot of extra points. It almost cost them. They missed two last game. They've missed some earlier in the years too, and that's one of the reasons they've been going for a lot of fourth downs. So that concerns me. And the other main concern is this run defense has not been strong yet. It just is not. And I think a part of that is because you mentioned Staley does go a lot of too high safeties, and that kind of invites the run when you have one less guy in the box, right? But they got ran over by the Browns. I mean, the Browns ran over them. Now the Browns kind of do that to every team though, right? So you can kind of expect that, but the Cowboys looked really good against running against them as well. So that's one thing that I'm concerned if teams are going to be able to control the game flow by just kind of running down their throat. But yeah, I mean, besides those two maybe issues, I really don't think there's much more bad you can say about them. They have Justin Herbert. Their O line's been great. And one thing too is this team does not miss on first rounders. This team's track record of first round picks is unreal. The only one was Tillery, who's a D tackle, but besides that, I mean, they just Bosa, Slater, Derwin, it is incredible. So I really don't know what else to say about these Chargers besides they have a loaded roster now. They have a young rookie not rookie, but rookie contract quarterback who's stepping it up. He was great last year, and this year he's been even better. So, sky's the limit for this team for the next few years until Justin Herbert gets paid $500 million.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get that contract and he's going to deserve every penny of it. But
Hmm.
I'm 100% with you. I agree with the things that you should be nervous about with the Chargers. But I think their kind of saving grace is Justin Herbert. I think the shocking thing about Justin Herbert is, yeah, he's so physically gifted. Yeah, he throws rockets like with perfect accuracy all the time. I'm kind of shocked by how good he's already playing in structure in a brand new offense. Like he plays within the timing and rhythm of the offense, like as good as any quarterback in the NFL, which is kind of bizarre for a young quarterback because even the ones that were really, really good fast, like Watson and Mahomes, the first couple years they didn't always play quarterback perfectly, but they played quarterback like 95% of the time really well. And then they like the other 5% of the time they would just do ridiculous physical things that you would be like, oh my God, they can't do that. Herbert is basically playing quarterback perfectly the 100% of the time. And because he can do that and he can make throws like nobody else can with insane accuracy. Like I think he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Every game, I feel like I don't know what his completion percentage is, but I feel like every throw that he makes is catchable. It's in the exact right spot. It's crazy how hard he throws with that accuracy. He's just the great equalizer to me because he's really a special quarterback. And I think the sky is really the limit for the Chargers team. This Chargers team, I don't think a lot of people had them as one of the Super Bowl teams. I think people were thinking Bucks, Browns, Rams, Bills, Chiefs before the season. The Chargers are definitely to me in that category.
Definitely. So we have Chargers up there. I know we kind of mentioned them in our preseason predictions as a sleeper team or dark horse. And yeah, they've kind of been fitting that bill so far. But we can move on to the final topic of the show, and that is just Howie Roseman being awesome in the month of April. This past April and May, he made some great trades. I guess in March too, but just this offseason, Howie Roseman made a bunch of different trades, moving around for 2021 or I guess 2022, and sort of solidifying the future. They got rid of Wentz. They still have an older roster, but they acquired some new guys, traded down a little bit, traded up, made some moves. But Vish, what are your thoughts on the Eagles trades? And I guess I can just preface this by saying what they are, right? So they traded Carson Wentz for a contingent second rounder. If he plays over 75% of the snaps, Carson Wentz, that comes into a first. And then they traded from 6 to 12 with the Dolphins. And then they picked up the Dolphins first rounder. And as we sit at the end of week 5 before the Colts play, the Philadelphia Eagles right now are slated to have the number 3 pick from the Dolphins, number 7 pick from the Colts, and the number 10 pick from themselves. So that's 3 picks in the top 10. But Vish, what are your overall thoughts on what Howie Roseman and the Eagles have done this past offseason?
Yeah, I think they've been unbelievable. They've had a great offseason. I've been wrong on a lot of things with the Eagles. Like, I didn't think that what they were doing was very shrewd. I didn't think hiring Sirianni was the right move. I didn't think that sticking with Jalen Hurts was the right move. All of that. I just want to say I was pretty much wrong across the board. Sirianni looks like a pretty solid hire. Their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gaiman, seems to be a good game planner and pretty smart, and their defense is actually pretty good, better than what I expected. And I do want to give props first off. I think Jalen Hurts is getting better at an alarmingly fast rate. There's so many things I thought that he was not good at last season that it's shocking how much better he's gotten in terms of playing from the pocket. And if he's getting better at this rate, who knows how good he will be next year, which makes their moves look even smarter because they have all these assets to build around a quarterback instead of having to get a quarterback. I mean, the first move you talked about, right? The Dolphins trade. Unbelievably smart move because
Mhm.
it's not just the fact that they traded down and got a first round pick for next year, which now looks like it could be a top 10 pick and has a good chance of being a top 10 pick. It's also the added fact that they went and got a rookie receiver who's outperforming the other rookie receiver, Jalen Waddle. Devonta Smith has been very good this season. I mean, outside of Jamar Chase, who's basically on a historic pace his rookie season, Devonta Smith has had a very, very good rookie season. Everything about how Devonta Smith plays makes you very excited about how good he's going to be in his connection with Jalen Hurts. So that first thing looks good. The Carson Wentz trade. Carson Wentz is likely going to play 17 games this season. I mean, he played with 2 sprained ankles. If he's willing to play through
Yeah.
that, he's going to play. And Carson Wentz also this season still has a lot of issues that Carson Wentz had in 2021. And so 2021 or 2020, excuse me, was not a one-off season for Carson Wentz. It's closer to who he is. The erratic accuracy, the somewhat reckless play, the kind of confusing, perplexing decision making still exists within Carson Wentz's game. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it existed even when he was an MVP, but I thought the talent around him was able to elevate the best of his play style and his athleticism and ability. And now he hasn't had the best team around him the last few years. Even Indy's offense around him, I wouldn't say is very great. And we're seeing the worst of Carson Wentz. So from that standpoint, I think that's another victory for Philly. And you just look at their assets. You look at the fact that everything Jalen Hurts has done so far this year has been promising him. And I think Nick Sirianni is really smart in terms of the way he calls games for Jalen Hurts. I do think that they do things for Jalen Hurts that makes it very, very comfortable in terms of what he's able to do and what he's good at. And not to mention the fact that they've gotten him to get this much better in such a short time is crazy to me. And so I think everything Philly did this offseason was very, very smart. It's paying off. And Philly looks like just a year from now, they can quickly turn this thing around. And they might have the best team in the NFC East because they already look better, honestly, so far this year than the Giants, who've been struggling with injuries and bad coaching decisions and weird things, and Washington, who looks very dumb for not addressing their quarterback situation and thinking Ryan Fitzpatrick was the answer.
Definitely. I mean, you go to the Wentz trade, right? That relationship was stained. They got what they could, and they got a second, which could be a first. That is great, and they're eating the dead cap, right? But that doesn't really matter for them because they knew going into this season that they were not going to compete. So pretty much them eating the cap was another way of helping them tank, not having to pay people and all that. And then the Dolphins trade, I never understood this from the Dolphins kind of side of the equation, right? You had all these big picks. I thought they should have just stayed put at 12, but they traded up. But they traded up for a receiver, which I don't entirely agree with. I don't know what the whole point of that was, but they did it anyway, and it was a great move by the Eagles because not only did the Eagles move back, and they were still able to get one of the receivers, which they desperately needed because their receivers just haven't been that great. Although Rager's been better, and Quez Watkins looks like he could be something, a guy they took late, but this Dolphins pick is turning out to be a lot better than we all anticipated, right? Their offense, this Dolphins offense has been in shambles. Two has been injured. Brissett hasn't been as good. The Dolphins defense hasn't been able to kind of carry them like they were last year. So this Dolphins pick's looking like it's going to be top 10, which is kind of crazy, all things considered. So they're getting a top 10 pick. They're getting Devonta Smith, who some people had as better than Chase. I know you had him better than Chase. At minimum, he was a top 3 receiver in this draft, right? So they got him, and they picked up a couple first potentially. That is just genius. And all the while, their team has been competitive in pretty much every game. They went toe to toe with the Niners. They had a little comeback against the Chiefs. They've won a couple games. So they've been really, really solid this year, considering the fact that they're rebuilding. Their roster is older in some aspects, but I don't know, man. This has been looking like a really good start to their rebuild as of right now.
Yeah, and it's because of the assets they have and because of how cheap Hertz is, it's looking like it doesn't even have to be a rebuild. Like they can be 6-11, 7-9, maybe even 8-9, 9-8 type team this year, just right around a fringe 500 team. And with the Miami pick, the possible Indy pick, their pick, immediately be able to turn it around like this and inject youth into their team to go with the fact that they have a lot of young players, but a lot of really good older players, like a Jason Kelsey, and be a powerhouse next year once again. And maybe they spend their assets and hit that 1 year lottery the way they did in 2017 when they spent everything and everybody worked out in 2017. They didn't work out in 2018. They didn't work out in 2019, but they worked out in 2017 when they were able to eventually win the Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. And then Nick Foles ended up taking them to the promised land in the playoffs. But you look at that, and then you look at the fact that, the offensive line between Jason Kelsey and Jordan Mailata, they have two like cornerstone offensive line pieces, and Kelsey's still playing at a very high level. And Mailata has been the find of the NFL. That dude is
Yeah.
incredible. And so I just look at it like that, and I say I'm shocked, but the Eagles are gonna be maybe a force to be reckoned with next year. And I think Jalen Hurts is a lot better quarterback than what I expected he would turn out to. I didn't expect his development to be this fast like this, and who knows how good he'll be next year, the way he's getting better.
Definitely. But the Eagles have looked like a winner from this past offseason, just how the start of the season has been going. Dolphins trending down, surprisingly, to much people's surprise. And then the Colts, people were either high or low on them. They've struggled so far, although they have a big game against the Ravens in
In
week 5. Yeah, in 5
in
days.
like 10 minutes.
Yep. But that is going to wrap up this episode of Blake&Vish Sports. So let us know, drop your comments on Trey Lance's performance, Trey Lance's knee injury. Is this the fault of Kyle Shanahan? Should he be fired tomorrow? All of that. And then like, share, subscribe with others. But hopefully we'll be streaming again Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, one of those days. Is kind of how the schedule is looking to be shaping up for this weekend. But thank you, and we'll see you later in the week.